All right, let's jump into the world of footwear quality technicians. We're really diving deep with RoleCatcher today. You're going to see what it takes to build a real career in this field. There's way more than just checking for loose threads, This is like next level quality stuff.
Yeah, it really is. It's easy to think of it as a simple thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's about understanding that one shoe, that's like the whole brand's promise right there.
That's a big deal.
We're talking national and international quality standards, analyzing data, figuring out how to make things better. It's all those tiny details, but you got to see the big picture too, you know, all in this one role.
That makes a lot of sense. And that kind of explains why they're saying you need such a broad skill set. Math and chemistry, sure, those seem kind of obvious, but they really emphasize like administrative skills too, which
Yeah.
isn't something you'd necessarily think about right off the bat.
Right, right. But then you think about all the documentation involved. I mean, you're talking to suppliers all the time. You're probably training new people on those quality systems. So, yeah. And that career path they lay out is pretty amazing. Starting out, entry level, all the way up to quality manager. But those soft skills, those are what help you climb that ladder.
Absolutely. Speaking of starting out, I was really interested by their tips on how to actually get your foot in the door, so to speak.
Yeah.
They mentioned internships, volunteering for any kind of quality control projects, really just showing that you're proactive, not just waiting for an opportunity to show up.
Exactly. You can't just sit around and wait for things to happen.
Yeah.
And you can't just check the learning box and call it a day either.
Right.
They talk about conferences, industry publications. You got to stay ahead of the curve on these trends. Like sustainable footwear. That's changing everything. The materials, how things are made, everything.
They're saying this whole field is only getting bigger, though, right?
Yeah,
With companies investing more and more in quality management, that sounds like really good news for anyone thinking about this as a career.
it is. It really is good news. And speaking of good news, you see those interview questions they give? It's like a cheat sheet. It's fantastic.
Oh, for sure. They even talked about how RoleCatcher's got those AI tools, right, to analyze job descriptions and help you fine-tune your resume. Feels almost like cheating.
Well, hey, in such a competitive world, you got to take every advantage you can get, right? Knowing how to use technology like that, it's essential. But you can't forget that human element either.
Absolutely.
This guide, it really digs into the skills a good footwear quality technician needs. And it's not just about seeing if the shoelace is messed up or something.
They really get into the nitty-gritty then. What were some of the highlights for you?
Well, they really stressed understanding quality control analysis, which, I mean, it makes sense, right?
Right.
We're talking equal, you know, acceptable quality limit and all the statistics behind it. But they also talked about how important monitoring is, not just inspecting.
Oh, interesting. So not just finding the faulty shoelace, but like figuring out why it was faulty in the first place. And then, how to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Exactly. And then good reading comprehension, of course. You're always going through documentation, interpreting those international standards, and active listening. Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, for sure.
You're the bridge,
Yeah.
right, between the suppliers, the managers, even sometimes the customers. Being able to communicate clearly, that's non-negotiable.
So it's this mix then. Technical stuff, but also being good with people. You got to love the details, but also be able to see the bigger picture at the same time.
You nailed it. Now, speaking of details, they really emphasize how much you need to know for this role. Not just national, but international quality standards and systems. That's like the foundation of everything you do.
It makes sense. You're the one making sure every shoe that goes out the door meets those standards. It's a big responsibility.
For sure. But it's not just about memorizing a bunch of rules,
Yeah.
You really got to understand why those rules are there. What's the impact on safety, on how the shoe performs? Why does this specific material meet that specific standard? It's about actually using that knowledge, not just having it.
So it's like you need to be able to explain why this type of stitching is crucial for a hiking boot, but not for, say, a ballet shoe. Not just that it's the rule.
Exactly. And on top of those standards, you got to understand how shoes are actually made. The different materials, the steps involved in production, it all matters.
So you could, like, spot a potential weak spot in a shoe just by looking at how it's made. You wouldn't even need to see it break first.
Exactly. It's problem solving.
Yeah.
But to solve those problems, RoleCatcher really stresses how important analytical and critical thinking skills are.
Makes sense.
You're always looking at data, finding those little patterns that might point to a bigger issue.
So you're crunching numbers, yeah, but it's also about spotting trends. Maybe even, like, predicting problems before they even happen.
You got it. And finally, they highlight understanding the principles of continuous improvement and making sure customers are happy. This isn't a job where you just do the same thing every day. You're always trying to make things better.
So a good footwear quality technician isn't just checking things off a list. They're like actively looking for ways to improve things, even if it shakes things up a bit.
Yes, they're always asking, how can we make this even better?
Mm.
And to answer that, you have to stay up to date.
Which brings us to their advice on staying current, which I actually thought was really useful for anyone, not just someone who wants to work with shoes. What were some of the things that stood out to you?
Going to those industry conferences is huge. And not just for the workshops and stuff, but just like talking to people.
Oh, right.
Imagine being able to chat with the people who actually make those international standards, or hearing about some brand new material or testing method straight from the source.
That networking can be so valuable. I also loved their suggestion of subscribing to those industry magazines and stuff. It's like a little dose of footwear knowledge delivered straight to your inbox.
Exactly. And don't underestimate online communities either.
Yes.
Websites, blogs, even just getting into those discussions on LinkedIn, you can learn so much just by being part of the conversation.
And speaking of conversations, RoleCatcher had some really interesting insights on how technology is changing the whole hiring process in this field. What were some of the things that jumped out at you about that?
Well, the way automation is being used more and more, especially for that first screening stage,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. Your resume, your online profiles, those aren't just documents anymore. They're your first impression.
So being able to tell your story in a way that grabs their attention is more important than ever. Thankfully, it sounds like RoleCatcher's AI tools can really help you stand out. It's about being adaptable and using those advancements to your advantage. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks here. What kind of interview questions should someone be prepared for if they're going for one of these footwear quality technician jobs?
Well, RoleCatcher actually gives a list of 10 common questions.
Hmm.
We can go through them if you want, and you can start brainstorming some killer answers.
Let's do it. Hit me with question number one.
All right, get ready for this curveball. Can you explain your experience working with footwear quality control?
Oh, the classic. So it's their chance to see what kind of hands-on experience you have, but also, I'm guessing, how you talk about it.
Exactly. Even if you haven't had a job with that exact title, think about anything you've done that shows you have those core skills. Maybe you worked in retail and had to check for damage, or volunteered on a project where you were doing quality checks.
It's about connecting the dots for them, showing them those transferable skills. Okay, what's next on the interview hot seat?
Okay, question 2. This one goes a little deeper. How do you ensure that footwear quality standards are met? This is where you show off your knowledge of all those national and international standards, those equals we talked about.
It's about proving you understand why those standards exist, not just that they're, a thing. What makes a good answer for this kind of question?
Specificity. Don't just say you follow procedures. Give them an example. Like, when I'm inspecting a hiking boot, I always make sure to check the seam sealing because that's super important for its waterproof rating, and that directly affects if the customer's happy and if they're safe. Boom. You've shown them you know your stuff and you know how to apply it.
It's about showing them you can walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with question number 3.
All right, get ready to problem solve. How do you handle a situation where a product doesn't meet quality standards?
Ooh, the curveball. They want to know you can handle things when they go wrong, which, let's be honest, they always do at some point.
Exactly. And it's not just about finding a solution, it's about how you think. Walk them through it. See something like, first, I'd isolate that whole batch so nothing else goes out with the same problem. Then I'd use those root cause analysis tools, like maybe the 5 whys technique, to figure out why the defect happened in the first place.
And just like that, you've shown them you're proactive, analytical, and a total problem-solving machine. Okay, bring on. Question number 4.
All right, this one's all about those technical skills. Can you explain your experience with footwear testing?
Time to brag a little.
If you've done any testing, whether it's for durability, water resistance, whatever, now's your time to shine.
Yep. Talk about specific tests you've done, the equipment you've used, even what standards those tests are based on. And if you're newer to all this, don't freak out. You can still show them you're eager to learn by mentioning different testing types and how you'd love to get experience with them.
It's all about showing that growth mindset. Okay, what's question number 5? This one ties back into continuous learning. How do you stay up to date with industry standards and regulations?
Okay, so show them you're not just keeping up, you're way ahead of the game.
Yes. Talk about those industry publications you're reading, the webinars you're watching. You can even mention a recent article that changed how you thought about a certain quality standard. It shows you're really paying attention.
I love that. Okay, on to question number 6. What have we got?
It's story time.
Hmm.
Describe a time when you identified and resolved a quality control issue. This is where you pick a story that shows off your problem-solving skills, but also what you're capable of.
Right. So something like, by coming up with a new inspection checklist, I was able to reduce product returns by 15%. Boom, give them those numbers.
Exactly. They love to hear that.
And-
Okay, question number 7. Get ready to talk organization. How do you prioritize and manage your workload as a quality technician?
Oh yeah, time management, huge, especially in a field like this. Things move fast.
Be specific. Talk about tools you use, maybe Kanban boards, project management apps, or even just a good old to-do list. But also, let them know you're flexible. Like, I usually prioritize based on deadlines and how big of an impact something has, but I'm always down to adjust when things pop up.
Gotta love that adaptability. Okay, question number 8, bring it on.
Here we go. Can you explain your experience working with suppliers and vendors?
That's a big one. Especially as you move up, you've really got to know how to manage those relationships. They'll be looking for someone who's diplomatic, professional.
Exactly. Give them a solid example. Something like, at my last job, I negotiated a whole new quality agreement with one of our main suppliers. We were able to shorten the lead times and improve communication overall.
Boom, you've just shown them you can handle those key relationships like a pro. All right, question number 9, what's next?
Time to get detailed. How do you ensure that all quality control documentation is accurate and up to date? This one is all about your systems.
Right. Finding a problem is one thing, but documenting it clearly and making sure those records are always current, that's crucial.
Talk about your process. I use this cloud-based system so everything's updated in real time. And I always double-check my work because accuracy is key. Plus, I do regular audits just to be extra sure everything matches the latest standards.
Now that's what I call attention to detail. All right, last but not least, question number 10. Bring on the grand finale.
Get ready for the ethical dilemma. Can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision related to quality control? This is where they're looking for your judgment, your integrity.
This is your time to shine. Show them you're not afraid to make the tough calls, even if it's not the easy way out. Maybe talk about a time you had to choose between meeting a deadline and delaying production because of a small quality issue.
Yeah, that's a good one. Walk them through how you made the decision, what you considered, and what ended up happening. Honesty and transparency are key here.
This has been an amazing crash course in interview prep.
Remember, the key is to prepare. Think about your answers, practice saying them out loud, and most importantly, just be yourself. But acing the interview, that's just step 1.
That's right. RoleCatcher also maps out the career progression for a footwear quality technician, and it's actually pretty impressive.
It's like a roadmap. It shows you the different paths your career could take and the skills you'll need to level up as you go.
Okay, so let's say someone's just starting out, right? What does an entry-level footwear quality technician actually do all day?
Let's explore that and those exciting levels beyond in the next part of our deep dive.
You know, it's really cool how this RoleCatcher guide lays it all out. This career progression, I mean, it's not just about getting that first job. It's about seeing where you could go, what's possible in the world of footwear quality.
Yeah, it's like they handed us this treasure map and we're following it to a fulfilling career. So, okay, let's talk entry level. What's a day in the life of a brand new footwear quality technician actually look like? So at the entry level, it's all about learning the ropes, mastering those fundamentals. Picture this. You're on the factory floor, right? Machines are humming. You smell that fresh rubber. You're the gatekeeper. You're checking every single shoe for anything that's off. Stitching problems, materials that don't look right, everything.
Talk about an eye for detail. Sounds like there's no room for error. You got to be focused.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about what you see either. They're also doing those basic tests. Maybe checking how much a shoe bends or how hard the rubber is with a durometer. So they're getting that hands-on experience with testing and building a really solid base.
And I'm guessing there's a ton of documentation involved too, right?
Oh, tons. Record keeping is everything.
Yeah.
Every little inspection, every test result, it all gets logged in detail. That's where those administrative skills really come in handy, making sure everything is accurate and you can track it back if you need to. And of course, since it's entry level, safety is like the biggest thing.
Safety first, always. Okay, so what's the next step up? Tell me about the junior footwear quality technician.
So this is where you go from helping out to taking charge. More responsibility, more independence. A junior technician might be running their own inspection line, making decisions about what variations are okay, even training newer team members.
So those leadership skills are starting to come into play.
Exactly. And tests get more advanced, too. They might even help design the testing procedures for new shoe models, then analyze all the data to make sure the shoe is actually performing the way it should and meets all the quality standards.
So it's not just about, oh, this looks wrong. It's about, okay, why does this keep happening and how do we make sure it doesn't?
Exactly. And this is where you need those analytical skills. Let's say a bunch of shoe soles fail a flexibility test. The junior technician, they're the ones who got to figure out what's going on. Is it the material? Is the manufacturing process messed up? They're like detectives, using data and what they know to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, so at this level, it's less about spotting a crooked stitch and more about understanding the why behind the crooked stitch. I like it. What happens when you move up to senior footwear quality technician? That's got to be a whole other ballgame.
Oh yeah, at the senior level, you're not just a technician anymore, you're the quality guru.
Hmm.
You've seen it all by this point. Little problems, huge production disasters, you name it. And now, you're the one leading the charge on quality.
So what does that actually look like day to day?
Well, for starters, they're doing those big picture audits of the whole quality management system. Think of it like a checkup for the entire production line, from the moment materials come in to when the shoe is ready to be sold. They're also the ones coming up with and putting into place new quality control procedures.
So they're not just following the rule book, they're helping to write it.
Exactly. Plus, they're mentoring the junior technicians, sharing what they know, and making sure that whole quality-first attitude is everywhere.
That mentorship aspect is huge. They're shaping the future of the field, really.
Okay, so we've talked about the leadership side. What about the actual technical stuff?
They're still deep in the data, but now it's about spotting those larger trends, looking for patterns, things that seem off, anything that might mean there's a bigger problem going on.
So maybe they're looking at data from different factories, comparing how many defects there are, seeing if there are tiny differences between batches of shoes made at different times, like some next-level data detective work.
Precisely. They're also the point person for working with suppliers and manufacturers to fix those really tricky quality issues, which means you need top-notch negotiation skills, you got to be diplomatic, and you have to be able to find solutions that work for everyone.
It's all about building those strong relationships where everyone trusts each other and wants to make the best product possible. Okay, I gotta know, what's the top of the mountain look like? Where do you go from senior footwear quality technician? From there, a lot of people move into management. Quality manager, supervisor, things like that. They've gone from checking individual shoes to being in charge of the entire quality system for the whole company.
That's incredible. So what kind of things are they doing at that level?
They're the ones who create the company's rules about quality, the policies and procedures. Basically, they define what quality even means for that brand. They're managing a whole team of technicians and inspectors, setting goals, doing training, and really nurturing that company culture of quality.
It's like they're conducting an orchestra, making sure every instrument is in tune and playing together beautifully.
I love that. And just like a conductor, they have to be aware of everything that's going on. The quality manager is keeping an eye on those relationships with suppliers, staying up to date on what's new in the industry, all those technological advances. They're always thinking ahead, figuring out how to make things more efficient, have fewer defects, and just really wow the customer.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? The customer having a great experience.
Absolutely. And one thing I thought was really interesting in this guide is how much they emphasize getting feedback from customers. At this level, it's not just about meeting your own internal standards. It's about understanding what quality means to the people who are actually wearing the shoes.
So they might look at customer reviews, see how many people were returning shoes, even have those focus groups to get feedback directly.
Right. It's a much bigger picture view of quality.
Mhm.
Now, I know this all might sound a little overwhelming, but the guide does a great job of breaking it all down, and not just what you need to do, but the kinds of people who really thrive in this kind of work.
Because it's not just about being good at spotting details or being good with numbers. It's about being passionate, wanting to solve problems, being a leader, someone who really cares about quality.
Yes, and you can teach someone how to run a test, but you can't teach them to care about the result. You can't teach that feeling of pride you get when you see someone wearing shoes that you helped to create.
That's what separates the good from the great. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, I'm curious, What are some other job titles someone might see for this type of role? Because let's be real, footwear quality technician doesn't exactly scream exciting career to everyone.
That's a great point. Footwear quality technician doesn't always capture everything these professionals do.
Okay, so let's unpack some of those alternative titles and see what they tell us about this career path. So, we've talked about the skills, the career path, even the passion that drives a footwear quality technician. But what about like the actual day-to-day? Where does all this shoe magic actually happen?
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck on those technical details and forget about the environment itself. RoleCatcher actually does a good job of painting a picture, and it's not always what you'd expect.
See, I'm picturing like these spotless labs, all these high-tech gadgets. Am I close?
Well, you'll definitely see those, especially as you move up. But a lot of the time, a footwear quality technician, they're right there on the factory floor.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds of machines running, those assembly lines going, you can smell the glue and the leather in the air.
Okay, so not exactly a desk job then, but what about those labs and offices? They're still part of it, right?
Oh, for sure. You'll be analyzing data, writing reports, maybe even working with designers on brand new shoe models. And depending what you specialize in, yeah, you might find yourself in a really fancy lab, testing how strong different materials are or what those dyes are actually made of, chemically speaking.
It really drives home how many different aspects there are to this job. You're on the factory floor, in the lab, in the office, working with different people, using a whole bunch of skills. What about the actual working conditions? What should someone be ready for, realistically?
I appreciate that RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat this. Every workplace is different, of course,
Yeah.
but you got to be ready for some noise, especially out there on the production floor. And you're going to be around chemicals, machinery, so following those safety rules is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. Safety first. They also talked about how all this new technology is changing how footwear quality technicians do their jobs. What were some of the big ones for you?
Software, for sure. That quality management software, it's a game changer. It's changing how data gets collected, how it's analyzed, how it's used to make the whole production process better. We're talking dashboards that update in real time, reports that practically write themselves, and some seriously smart algorithms that can spot even the tiniest quality issues.
So those spreadsheets and clipboards might still be kicking around, but they've got some powerful new friends.
Yeah. And it's not just about making things faster either. These tools help footwear quality technicians dig deeper into the data, find those hidden patterns, and spot areas where things could be improved that they might have missed before.
Like having a superpower for quality control. What other technologies are making waves in this field?
AI, definitely. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, they're becoming more and more important, especially for inspection. Imagine a camera system that scans like thousands of shoes every minute and can tell if even the smallest thing is off. Way better than a human could.
Whoa, that's wild. That frees up the human inspectors to focus on, well, the stuff only humans can do.
Right. They can tackle the more complicated issues, the real head scratchers. And AI isn't just for inspecting either. It can look at all that customer feedback, all those reviews and stuff, and figure out what the common problems are before they become huge issues.
So it's not just about keeping the quality high, it's about using technology to make things even better than we thought possible. What else?
Oh, they also mentioned using VR, like virtual reality, for training.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Imagine new hires learning how to do those really tricky inspections, or practicing what to do if something goes wrong, but they're in a safe virtual world.
That's amazing. It's like taking a field trip to the factory floor without having to, actually go there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of training is only going to get more important as technology changes faster and faster.
A footwear quality technician. They got to be adaptable, good with tech, always ready to learn something new.
It's a field that never sits still. That's what makes it so challenging, but also so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap up our little deep dive here, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. Passion. Why is it so important in this line of work, do you think?
Because when you're passionate about quality, it's not just a job anymore, it's something you truly care about. You see those shoes, and yeah, they're shoes, but they're also a sign of amazing craftsmanship, of innovation, of a dedication to doing things really, really well. You're proud of the work you do because it's not just about making money for the company, it's about the people who are going to wear those shoes.
It's knowing that a well-made shoe, it can do so much. It can give someone confidence, help them perform better, even just bring them joy. Exactly. And that passion, it spreads, it makes the people around you want to do better, to care about every little detail, to never just settle for okay. It's about building a whole culture of quality from the ground up.
So as we come to the end of our deep dive into the world of footwear quality technicians, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
That this is a career where you can use your head and your hands. It's creative, and you actually have a chance to make the world a little bit better, one shoe at a time. If you're someone who loves details, who gets excited about making things the best they can be, and who wants to be part of an industry that's always changing and growing, well, this could be the perfect career for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, and never let go of those passions. When you put those together with a real purpose, amazing things can happen. Until next time, keep those shoes shining.
And those standards high.